Okay. Wait, before I start, let me share my screen and do a few things here. And then I'm gonna make my face bigger. I always make it a little too small, I think. I think it's just better if you can see more of me, not for the obvious reasons. Um, okay, so no, but then you can't see the screen, and I want you to see the screen. So I'm gonna shrink it a little bit. All right. Yeah, I don't like it. I think it's hiding too much. But since I'm mostly going to be talking, I'm not really going to be instructing. I think it's going to be fine. Okay, so this video is about, the usual YouTube nonsense. Look at me. I have something interesting to say. Not really, but watch my videos and donate money to me. Although you have no way of donating money to me, which doesn't mean you shouldn't try to find a way. Um, this is going to be my language goals. So this is a language goals video. I'll probably ramble on about some dumb shit also, and then I'll give you two book recommendations. Uh, they're for the two languages that I'm currently studying. Uh, okay, so let's get into it. Um, I feel like I should make it smaller. That's what she said. Why would she say that? Okay, nobody should say that. Okay, here we go. I'll leave it like this. I think that's decent size. All right. So as you can see, I made this document. Well, I don't know if it proves anything, but the date on this document is 12/15/23, which is actually after I started studying Russian. Russian is the first language that I started studying recently, or that I have started studying. Um, and I'll give you more details later. But before we go into it, I want to show you basically where I stand now as my language proficiency. I'm a native English speaker. I came to the U.S. from Peru when I was 6 years old, like a couple of days prior. And then I think within a year, which I don't remember, I transitioned to English, and I learned English and I spoke English. And as any 6 year old would do, I learned it like a native speaker, and my level is native. And yeah, so and then from that time on, my Spanish, my Castellano, as we say in Peru, we don't say Spanish, we say Castellano. Um, didn't regress, but it plateaued, and then it basically plateaued, and then at a certain point, like if you plateau at 6 years old, 7 years old, 8 years old, now you're behind. Right now, you're behind the average 8 year old Spanish speaker, like that grows up in like a Spanish speaking country. And so now my Spanish is roughly that of an 8 year old with a matching vocabulary, because I never like read in Spanish. I never have a conversation in Spanish. So yeah. Why is this little at sign doing there? Okay. But I'm fluent as whatever you spoke Spanish when you were 6 years old, you're fluent, right? You're a first grader, right? And you can say pretty much what you want to say. I mean, obviously within limits. Anyway, so I'm a native Spanish speaker, and I have goals for Spanish, which is basically just to read more, like read more stuff. I like classical literature. I like Hemingway, Steinbeck, Somerset Maugham, um, some now I can't think of authors, Nabokov. I can go on. Right. So the classical literature, I'm a big fan of. I don't really like any contemporary stuff. I just think it doesn't compare. Okay, I'm fluent in Spanish. Hablo español. Nací en Perú. Puedo decir casi todo lo que quiero decir sin pensar mucho, pero si hay una palabra que no conozco, claramente tengo que pensar cómo le voy a decir lo que quiero decir sin usar esa palabra. Si es que hay algo que quiero decir, pero no sé la palabra uh, que quiero usar, tengo que decirlo en otra manera. Y eso es lo que hago. Pero entiendo todo, me pueden hablar, cualquiera me pueden hablar y yo entiendo. Okay. And so my Spanish is native. Not native. My Spanish is super fluent, like native level fluency, no thinking involved. The only time I have to think is when vocabulary word doesn't come to me, which is quite often. But if I speak like everyday stuff, then I have no such problems. right? But you can still tell, natives can still tell that I am not a native speaker anymore. I've lost that native, like, it's weird to call it a native accent, but let's call it that. Right. Okay. Um, my goal, and roughly, I would say I'm at a C1 level. Like, it's hard to, like, pretty much, it's hard to judge exactly what level I'm at. But my goal is to read more in Spanish and get to a C2 level, mainly by improving my vocabulary. Okay. Next, I took a year. Well, not quite. I'll tell the story. So let's just say, let's start off with the story that I took a year of Latin in college. And I went to a quarter system school. So I took Latin 1, Latin 2, Latin 3. Latin 1, I did well, an A. Latin 2, an A. Latin 3, I was on my way to getting another A, but like midway through the semester. Well, maybe that's a little like, yeah, maybe I can't really say that. Midway through the quarter, I stopped studying for a week. I got sick and I got lazy, and then like when I tried to like come back, like there's no coming back. You cannot come back in a quarter system from a language like Latin. You're just not going to do it. So my grades started to slow. My grades were like I was getting A's, and then I was getting B's, and then I was getting C's, and I'm like, no, 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 no. This is not going to happen because I'm not taking a C. That's what she said. So I dropped the class. So I dropped the class, and we were using Wheelock's Latin. It was this, that's the pretty much, I think, the standard text in California, at least for people who are studying Latin. I use Wheelock's Latin. In the first 2 years, I think we went through chapters 1 through 24. It's a 40 chapter book. We also translated from 38 stories. We didn't really use Wheelock's Latin Reader. I only found this after like college, and I haven't really gone through it. But I've gone through several stories of 38 Latin stories. I can't remember how many. I would say 24 because it's like it goes according to chapter, but I'm not exactly sure how many. Maybe more because I wasn't in Latin 3. Yeah. Anyway, but that's a long time ago, right? I'm in like my 50s now. I know you're shocked. Anyway, so like, and I took, yeah, this was college. I went to college later, like when I was in like my 30, not 30s. I was in like my late 20s. So it's been a good 30 years, like since I've really like actively translated Latin. So you can imagine like how much I've forgotten. Okay, so here are my three, and this is a little chart I made. I hope we can see it. I hope this, yeah, that's good enough. So English, it's a West Germanic language. There's roughly, this is according to Chat GPT, but there's got to be more. I think I've seen numbers where it's like over a billion, because it's not just primary speakers but secondary speakers, and English is the most popular secondary spoken language. Yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, more people learn English as a second language than any other language, right? So there are more native Chinese speakers. I would assume there are more native Hindi speakers from India. But when you put together the first primary and secondary speakers, I think English surpasses both Hindi and Chinese, Mandarin. Okay, so my level is native. I need to read more. I want to read more. I like reading, but like I go through spurts where I will read a ton, like a ton, in a few months. But then I'll like not read for half a year, like not a single book. Um, yeah, that's not a good quality. So Spanish is a Romance language. It's important if you want to learn other Romance languages like Italian, Portuguese, French, Romanian. Like it's easier to learn once you know one of the Romance languages. I think it's easiest to learn if you already know Portuguese, because the Portuguese understand what most Spanish speakers say, for example, and what Italian speakers say, but it doesn't work the other way around. I mean, we still understand the Portuguese, but not as much as they understand us. Okay, tangent. There are roughly 550 million primary and secondary speakers. It's a Latin-based script. I didn't mention about English. So we use the Latin alphabet, which is great because it's really popular for the languages that I want to learn. All alphabets, like, there's not a big difference in the alphabets. Obviously, there's differences, and sometimes they're kind of important differences. But there's only 3 alphabets that I really need to learn for the languages that I want to learn, and we'll see them. Okay, so Spanish, I guess C1 level, and I want to get to a C2 level, and basically by reading more Spanish. Well, I don't read any Spanish, so by reading Spanish stuff. Italian, it's an Italo-Dalmatian language. Speakers, it's not an actively spoken language. It's obviously Latin script. My level, it's hard to say because it's not a spoken language, and my like it's been so long since I've translated. Like I could put A1 makes sense. I could put A2 would make sense. I think B1 would be generous, or no, I won't bother. But my goal is to finish Wheelog's Latin along with the 38 stories, along with the reader here. If the reader is good, I know the 38 stories is good, but if the Wheelog's Latin reader is not good, then yeah, I'm not committed to like translating all those stories. Okay, so this is my base, right? Let's call it my language base, and it's a good language base because um, one, English allows me access to over 1 billion people. Spanish allows me access to over 500 million people, right? And it's a Romance language. Unfortunately, I have no interest in learning other Romance languages, so Spanish is not going to serve me so well in that regard. But okay, here we go. Let's start. So as of where is this? As of oh, I'm learning Russian. I didn't put the time date. That's another chart. I'm learning Russian. I started learning Russian in December, like first, basically, of 2023. So I'm a month and a half into Russian. The first month was gangbusters. I was like watching videos, reading my textbook, listening to a bunch of stuff, and even started to like I have like through a language exchange program. I have like 2 or 3 Russian people that I talk to on a weekly basis. But that's been recent. Like I haven't really been talking to them a lot. Okay, so my like I think like I'm on a solid A1 level. I can say like привет, меня зовут Карлос, как дела? Хорошо, спасибо, пожалуйста, здравствуйте. Я учитель. Things like that. Like basic phrase book, greeting stuff, the stuff that most of us learn when we learn a new language. Um, and I think my pronunciation is not terrible. Like I've worked at it, and the people I speak to say like we understand you. It's not high praise, like but like that's good. Like I'm satisfied. People understand me when I say "Как дела?" Меня зовут Carlos. Yeah, so like obviously I know I'm not anywhere near native level. Okay, but Cyrillic alphabet. And by the way, Russian is spoken by 260 million people. These are rough estimates. But I don't only get to talk to Russians. I can talk to Kazakhs, Kyrgyz, Uzbekistani people. There's a lot of Estonian speakers. I mean, Estonians in Russia. So because obviously because of Russia and the Soviet Union and all the all the satellite countries where Russia was basically like enforced or at least favored by even the community, by the people themselves. Like they said, "Oh, let's learn Russian. Why are we going to learn Kyrgyz? Why are we going to learn Kazakh?" Right. So yeah, this was the thinking back then. Now it's kind of changed. Now dissolved Soviet Union. People are more like the independence of these countries, and more pride is taken in their heritage. So now, like, there's a more favorable view about learning Kazakh in Kazakhstan, about learning Kyrgyz in Kyrgyzstan. Okay, still Russia is the dominant language, especially in the big cities, especially in the universities, the government, blah blah blah. But it's making a resurgence. Resurgence. Okay. So I would like, as you can see, number 7 on my list is Kazakh. Like I want to learn Kazakh, but for now, Russian would be more useful to me. So that's kind of like the reason why I've chosen Russian before Kazakh. Okay, so I'm at A1 level. My hope is to be a C1 level. One, because I think I'm going to make a lot of Russian friends online. I've already have 3 speaking partners in like the first week. In the first week, through this language exchange app or website, like I already and I want to be able to communicate and express myself like pretty much fully in this language. I don't want to be limited to like areas of like talking sports or just talking my job. Like no, I want to like maybe have philosophical conversations, and that's hard to do. It's hard to do in your own native language to be clear philosophically because it's a skill. People don't seem to realize that. And so like if I talk to Americans about philosophical topics, they don't know what the hell they're talking about. They say stuff that's just like, what does that mean? Like, is that English? It's like you're contradicting yourself. You're saying a bunch of non sequiturs. You're not explaining yourself very clearly. Does that mean this or this? That seems a little ambiguous. Or what the hell are you saying? That seems vague. Like you don't know what you're saying because philosophy is a skill, thinking and speaking clearly is a skill, and to do it in your own language is hard enough. And so to do it in a second language, like for me, like I think I need to reach C1 level. I think I have the advantage of already knowing what's clear and not clear in my own language, which I think most people don't. Like you don't. But so I can just like as long as I can learn Russian and like differentiate one meaning from another meaning, I'll choose the right meaning, or I'll choose the right sentence to express the meaning I want. Okay, that's enough about how awesome I am. Let's continue. Estonian. Estonian, I don't know why Estonian. Like, I hadn't even heard of Estonia until like 6 months ago, maybe a year ago. I started watching on YouTube. I don't know if you've ever seen this. It's a series by called Matteo and what? Matteo and Silvana, Lisana. Sorry, Lisana. Lisana's a cutie, by the way. She's from Estonia. Tall, slinky, nice butt, beautiful girl, like beautiful, like character, beautiful personality, sweet, innocent, like not so innocent. Nobody's really innocent, like, but you know what I mean. And she comes from Estonia, and Matteo and Lisana live in Estonia, but they're travel blog people, right? So this is not an ad for them, but like I would recommend them if you speak Spanish. Their videos are in Spanish, so um, yeah. So, but she has a nice character. I like her character. She's like a reticent girl, mostly reserved, and like they've made videos of them being in Estonia and visiting their family. And I like the people. I like the character of the people. Same thing with Russian. I like the people. I like the character of the people. And it's usually because of the climate and because of the geographical conditions and sometimes because of the geopolitical history. The people have a certain character. Obviously, not everybody's like that. This is just stereotypes, generalizations, but they're true, right? But they're true, right? Brazilians are different from Koreans, right? If you've ever hung out with a bunch of Brazilians, you'll realize that these people act and behave very differently than Koreans, especially more traditional Koreans, right? You might get to bang the Brazilian girl, but you're not banging the Korean girl. Sorry to be crude, because they had come from a different culture, different values, different tradition, different customs, right? So, okay. Um, yeah, I told you he was going to go on stupid tangents. It's always about like crude, prurient stuff. Anyway, Estonia. So there are only 1.3 million Estonian speakers, and basically they are all in Estonia. So I feel like I will be lucky to meet one or two Estonians and become like and have like lasting relationships with them. And so I don't think I need anything more than a B2. Like if I ever travel to Estonia, B2 will serve me well. And if I make an online friend and like speaking B2 level will be fine. And if it develops into like a relationship where we're having philosophical conversations and sharing our lives, like yeah, yeah, sharing our lives together and like becoming friends, then my level will naturally, I think, improve. But right now that's not the goal. Okay, so Estonian second. By the way, I started Estonian 2 days ago. Like I looked at Estonian like several months ago. Like looked at like terrevist. Uh, yeah, I don't want to say more because I feel like I already messed up terrevist. But terre, I know is like hello. Anyway, so and aita is like thank you. Okay, Estonian, I like how it sounds. By the way, Russian to me sounds beautiful. Estonian has a nice fluidity to it. I think they have some kind of vowel harmony or consonant harmony or some kind of like harmony where the spellings of words change or like because of the sounds, like influenced by the sounds of the words that they're modifying, something like that. I think so. Again, this is like 2 days into Estonian. Okay, so Estonian. I'm currently studying Russian and Estonian. I am not devoting the same amount of time. Like I'm a month and a half into Russian, and I spend like 70% of my time on Russian. I've now just started Estonian. I'll show you the book in a second. Actually, I'll show you the books right now. Like, let me show you the Russian book first. Recommendation. I have like several Russian books, several many actually. This is Modern Russian One by Dawson. I can't read it from the camera. Bidwell and Humsky. The best Russian book that I have found for self-learners. There's like if you guys are familiar with the Russian course, but the Penguin Russian course, which is a very good book too, this is better. This is better. And there's a book two. Book one and book two almost give you 1,000 pages of textbook walking you through the language. It's not like a reference book. It's a textbook where you're like, oh, do this, and here's some exercises. Here's the next thing, do some exercises. It's that. I haven't found any CDs for it, but like for Russian, like that would be great, by the way. But just go on YouTube and listen to Russian spoken. Listen to the like. There's millions of options, and you'll get the sound of Russian. You'll know what it's supposed to sound like. You know where the stress is supposed to go. You'll know how to say the familiar, like the top 100, 200, 300 words. And then once you can do that, like this will be perfectly fine. And so highly recommend this. Highly recommend this book. There's also another book called, I think, like Basic Russian, or yeah, Basic Russian by Fayer. Very good book. If you have that book, like use it. It's like I would just use it. And there's also a book too for Fayer. Fayer has a book too. The Russian course, which is like a 500-page book, but it's small. There's only one book. Like once you're done with the 500 pages, that's all you're getting. The Fair book has book one and book two, and I don't know how many total pages you're getting. I want to say like 600 total pages, maybe 700 total pages. This is 1,000, and it's a bigger book. The type is a little bigger than you would get in the Russian course book. I think it's by Brown. Anyway, so book recommendation: Estonian, beautiful textbook. Beautiful textbook. There's a bug in my room. Estonian textbook. It's a grammar, exercises, and conversation. This was translated. I forget. This was translated. So this is the author is Tuldava. Tuldava. I don't think it matters, but anyway, get this book. If you're gonna learn Estonian, this is the book to get. The best, one of the best language books I've ever seen. And I have many. I have books for Portuguese, Mandarin, Cantonese, Vietnamese, Spanish, Italian, French, Swahili, Lingala, Tamil, Hindi, Urdu, Pashto, or Pashtu. There's another way to say it, but anyway. Kazakh, Kyrgyz. What other languages have I like looked into and like bought a book and then said, no, I'm not gonna do Yiddish, German. All of these languages I've actually like I could read at one time Yiddish. Read it. I don't know what the hell I was saying, but I could read it. I could read Greek. Again, I didn't know what I was saying, but I could read it. Russian, I can read it. I don't know what the hell I'm saying except for the obvious like phrasebook stuff. Right. Alphabets, don't let alphabets intimidate you. This is another tangent. Don't let alphabets intimidate you. They look like if you're used to the Latin script, it's beautiful because it's so simple. Okay, but it's not hard to learn how to read Yiddish. It's not hard to learn how to read Korean, Hangul. I could read in Korean. It's not hard to learn how to read in Japanese. Okay, hiragana, katakana, F kanji. I could read it. It's not hard to learn how to read even in Armenian, even in Hindi, like Arabic. It's not hard. These languages are not, these alphabets are not hard to master. Sure, there's always special exceptions like, okay, this is not going to be phonetic. Some parts are not phonetic. You get used to that through speaking and learning the language. You don't like master the language rules and then learn how to read everything. No, but okay, but they're not hard. Don't let alphabets intimidate you. If Korean looks intimidating to you, it's just an illusion. It's easy. Korean is one of the easiest, by the way, easiest languages to learn how to read. Yeah. Okay. And Greek I found no harder. Russian I found no harder. Yeah, and Tamil, I haven't gone fully like I can't fully read Tamil because I haven't really like invested the time to it, but it doesn't look any really harder than any other alphabet. All right, back to where I was at. Okay, now in 6 months, so like June of 2024, I want to start with Quechua. I'm hoping that my Russian will be like at a B1 level or an A2 level, like a strong A2 level, and my Estonian will be like at a B1 level or a strong A2 level by then. But I want to start on Quechua. Quechua is a indigenous language from South America, Peru. It's an official language in Peru and Bolivia. It used to be like most indigenous languages. There was at one time a stigma about speaking them. They were considered vulgar. They were considered the language of the poor and uneducated, and they're not used in like official like circles, like government, schools, and things like that. And pretty much they're still not. But like, and you were insulted like in Peru growing up if somebody called you an indio, which is an Indian, which is basically it was an insult. right? That's not so much the case anymore, and people are actually have a favorable view of Quechua, and the government has made it an official language. Good on them. Good on them. But it's spoken in Colombia. It's spoken in Argentina. It's spoken in Ecuador, right? And there's many dialects of Quechua. The Quechua that I'm going to learn is Quechua Cusqueño, Cusqueño from Cusco, where like yeah, I think it's the most popular one in Peru, but there's other popular ones. Yeah, so I chose, and by the way, and I also have books for that. So it's one of the reasons. Well, it's not one of the reasons. I would have sought material for Quechua Cusqueño, Southern Quechua anyway, because it's the one I wanted. But I also have like pretty decent books for it, which is like surprising because it's just it's not a big language. Okay, so Quechua, 13 million speakers. I think B2 probably is overkill. Like I don't know if I'm gonna go to Peru again. I was born there, and I've been back, but I was back when I was like 10. And I don't know if even if I go to Peru, am I going to go to Cusco? And if I go to Cusco, am I going to speak to any native speakers? And is it going to be anything other than like how much is that poncho? Like I don't need to be B2 to learn how much is that poncho. I can learn how much is that poncho in one single day, and like practice it for a few days, and then say it like beautifully. Like, and I could do that for like 10, 20, 30 phrases. So if you're just going to go to a country and like interact that way with the people, then just save yourself like months and months of useless study because you're not going to use it. So get a phrase book, practice the phrase book. But I want to learn how to speak more, and plus it's Quechua. I'm from Peru, so it's like my heritage. My dad spoke Quechua. I don't know what level he was. I want to guess rough estimate he was a B1 level, but I don't know. Like that's just like it's almost like a blind guess. But I've heard him speak it. But at the time, I didn't know what if he was just making stuff up like patata patiti papupu. Sorry, Peruvians. I know that's not Alimika Shanka. Right. I think that's real Quechua, but what I said earlier is just nonsense. Yeah. So like, but I'm giving the idea that like I didn't know if that was make up stuff because my dad would make stuff up just to like fool me, and then yeah, or real. So like it's hard to judge what level he was because he could have been speaking like Klingon for all I know. Okay, Turkish, beautiful sounding language. Also, beautiful women. Also Russian, beautiful women. Right? Estonian, beautiful women. Quechua, beautiful women. Like it's all about the women. I'm kidding. Like I'm not really kidding because like if that's a motivation for you to like you think the women from this country are beautiful and you'd like to talk to them, like that's a legit motivation. Like nobody needs to like be ashamed of that being motivation of being your motivation. But honestly, like the men in Russia are amazing, right? You talk to guys, you talk to men, and they're good to know. They're good guys to know, and you can like get to know them, and you can build friendships. They're amazing. Women are amazing. Hermaphrodites, doubly amazing, right? Okay, so Turkish. Turkish is a Turkic language. Quechua is a Quechuan language, obviously. Oh, Estonian is a Finno-Ugric language. And there's really the only other language I know is Finnish. Finnish is the only other Finno-Ugric language from that family. And I don't want to learn Finnish. I have really no interest in learning Finnish. Nothing against the Finnish. Again, like beautiful people. But yeah, I have to have some like I got to pick and choose. Like and like I only have so much time, right? Okay, I don't have to justify my interest to you. Anyway, so Estonian, then Quechua, then Turkish. 80 million people Turkish. So there's going to be a bigger pool of people that I could possibly meet and like develop genuine friendships with if online is genuine, right? Okay. So C1 level. It's the only other language I want to reach a C1 level in. And if you'll notice, number 6 is Croatian, which is another Slavic language. Russian is an East Slavic. So I'm feeling like, not I'm feeling like, I know that knowing Russian will facilitate my learning of Croatian. Okay, I don't know how much, but it's going to do it. So great. And having learned, once I know Turkish, like if I get to like close to a C1 level in Turkish, learning Kazakh is going to be easier because Kazakh is a Turkic language, right? I didn't know that, but it's a Turkic language. Kyrgyz Turkic language. Okay, I'm pretty sure that's right. Okay, so but first Turkish, and there's just so many more millions of speakers. That's why I want to get to our C1 level. Next, Tamil, Dravidian language. Some people challenge. I've heard people from India tell me it's not a Dravidian language. Okay, maybe. I don't know. Wikipedia tells me it's a Dravidian language. Chat GPT tells me it's a Dravidian language. I'm not about to argue with Chat GPT, and to me it doesn't matter. I got no dog in this fight. 80 million people, great. Why not C1 level? Because I just don't see myself befriending Tamil people. Like, we don't, our culture is different enough where I think there'll be less of them interested in getting to know me. I'm not saying I have no interest in learning, getting to know them. I have interest. I want to learn the language. I think that signifies interest, right? So okay, but like like imagine like learning Yiddish. Like, who are you going to talk to? You think Yiddish people? You think people who speak Yiddish, which are going to be basically Orthodox Jews, are going to talk to you? You think they care about you? They want to hear about your Game Boy? You want to hear about your OnlyFans account? Like, no. Like, they have no interest in your life. Like, they don't want to talk to you. You're not interesting to them. Same for Tamil. I think I'm not going to be interesting to Tamil speakers. Okay, it's not the exact same analogy. The analogy is not meant to be close, but you get the idea, right? Okay, so B2 level, great. Croatian. Can I say, can without sounding like a pervert, can I say amazing women? Can I say that? Can I say that? Like, okay, Croatia, Kyrgyzstan and Kazakhstan too. Beautiful. I love how those women look. I can't. I feel like I'm just talking about women. Like, I'm here just learning languages so I can talk to women, which is like crass. It's crass. It's shame on you for thinking that about me. Shame on you. Okay. Um. So Croatian, Kazakh. Those are the 7 languages that I hope to take on. This I've actually had a list of 20 languages before. Japanese, like, oh, I want to learn Japanese. Why? Oh, beautiful women. Chinese, why? Oh, beautiful women. Korean, oh, why? Beautiful women. Right? Okay. Those are the Indonesian, Malaysian, Vietnamese, Tagalog, Chavacano. That's like 8, except for maybe Chavacano doesn't count as an Asian language, but it's spoken in Philippines, or like, I think that counts as an Asian language, even though it's basically a Spanish language. Okay, all of those languages I've had interest in. I've like done a little research. I even try to like speak a few words. Putaninamo. Um, yeah. So I have other language interests. These are the ones that I've settled down to being the ones that I'm actually going to pursue. As of now, I change my mind all the time. As of now, okay, I put in a month and a half into my Russian studies recently. Сейчас. Сейчас is now, I believe. Right? Okay. Um, and then I'm a few days into Estonian. I'm going to do more. Um, Quechua, I've looked at it. I know it's an agglutinative language where you're adding suffixes and making bigger and bigger words with more meaning packed into it. You can pack the personal pronoun into it. You can pack the personal ending, subject personal ending into it. You can pack the tense into it. You can pack different aspects of the grammar into it. So and English is specifically not that kind of a language for someone who speaks English. And Spanish it kind of is, but it's not as severe as like Latin, not as severe as uh Quechua, not as like Lingala, Swahili, where you're agglutinating. Basically, you're gluing things on, right? Yeah, that's new. So you got to get used to that. And for example, like Russian has and Latin has case system. The case system tells you how you're using basically the nouns in the sentence. Like, is this the subject? Is this direct object, indirect object, object of the preposition? Are you using and in some languages like there's a different case for the preposition. Well, it's not actually a preposition, but the prepositional meaning like it would be in English. Like if you want to say in America in Estonian, you're gonna have to spell the word differently than if with America or without America. Like so, by America, each one will have a different spelling. The word America will be spelled differently in the end, typically, to account for the case that it is. Right? In English, we use prepositions. Like we say in America, on America, by America, with America, without America. So if you learn the prepositions, then you don't have to change the word America. In Japanese, they use postpositions. No, no, They use particles. So they'll say something like America ga. The ga means America is the subject. America wa means America is the topic. America no means something else, right? I don't know what it means, but there's such a thing as no. So those are the particles. The particles tell you the same thing. They tell you what role the noun basically is doing in the sentence. Other languages use different ways of doing it, right? They use the endings. They use the personal endings. Okay, so Estonian uses the personal endings. English uses position of the word in the sentence. Japanese use particles. Other people use post positions, which prepositions, pre means before, so they come before the word. Post positions are basically prepositions that come after the word. Their post means after. Learn some Latin, you heathens. Okay, these are my goals. I know I'm not going to achieve them. Why? Because it's my history. Like that's who I am. I make goals, I start things, I fizzle out, I quit, and then like not nothing gets accomplished. I accomplish things in life at my own pace. Like I do things, but not in the normal like way of that generally people do things. Like I got my GED when I was like 26 years old. GED. I didn't graduate high school. GED. 26. Why 26? Because I didn't need it. I started to work. I'm like, but then I got like I got fired and then like I need a new job and like everybody's asking me, do you have a high school education or do you have a GED? And I'm like, no. So nobody's hiring me. So I'm like, okay, I got to go get my stupid GED. So I got my stupid GED. Certified stupid. Um and then like tangent. After my GED, I'm like, and then I got hurt at my job, and I'm like, I can't do this anymore. It's a blue collar job, right? So I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I need to go to school. I need to go to school and get some kind of white collar job, like some office job where I got AC. I'm not out in this freaking sun. I'm not smelling all these fumes, right? So I went back to City College like when I was like 27, 27, 28. I can't remember. So I got my AA in liberal arts when I was 29, I believe. Transferred to UCLA. dummies, dummies. Transferred to UCLA. Got my degree when I was like 30, 31. So I have a BA in philosophy, by the way. Well, I did well, by the way. Like high school, I was crap. City college, I was medium. UCLA, I was actually a very good student. Like with the GPA to prove it, with the intellect to like overprove it, like genius. Not really, but anyway. So what was my point besides I'm a genius? That wasn't my point. I don't do things as scheduled, but I accomplish things, but like on a slow schedule. So like if I actually accomplish everything in my life in a third of the time, you'd be like impressed. But because it's taking me so long, you're like, okay, you've kind of done some things that are kind of impressive, but it took you so long to do them. We're no longer impressed, right? Like if you could ride a bike when you were 3 years old, you'd be impressed, but you're 12, so like, who cares? Anyway, another analogy. I don't really mean it too seriously. All right, so here we go. Here's another. So here are roughly. Let me move my. Okay, the timeline that I've set. Again, and I've used the Rosetta Stone timeline of how long it takes someone to get to like C1 level. I think the Army also does one. I forget what they call. They train their speakers. They use basically the same timeline. Their timeline is basically the same. Like you need this many hours to get to a C1 level. Right? Okay, so I've used that to make a rough outline. I expect, but in January of 2026, so 2 years, I can be at a C1 level in Russian. Now, I think I can do it fast. Right? No, I'm pretty sure I can do it faster if I just studied Russian this whole time, but I'm not. I'm now also studying Estonian as of 1/15/24. I'm studying Estonian. So I have to split up my time. It's not 50-50. Like right now, I'm going to devote 70% of my time to Russian and 30% of my time to Estonian. That's going to retard, which just means slow. Don't be offended, you liberal cucks. It's just going to slow down my progress. Right. So that's why in June, basically 6 months from now, since I'm putting 70% of my time into learning Russian, I expect to be at a B1 level. Again, rough estimate, but only at A2 level in Estonian. And then as you can see, I'll be at a B2 level, I think, in a year from now, and a B1 level in Estonian a year from now. I think it'll take me, because I think Russian is harder. Russian is a harder language, not much harder than Estonian. Estonian is probably one of the hardest, like category 3 languages as they list to learn. I think they even asterisk it as like this language is like among the hardest in this category. But yeah, and I'll explain why in a second. Maybe I don't know why, but anyway, so that's it. So I hope to get like rough estimate C1 level by January 2026. I'm satisfied. Like without, to me, would be good progress because of all the other progress that I'm expecting to be making. And then I'll get to a B2 level in Estonian. And once I get to these levels, I'm putting in all of this means they're in maintenance mode. I'm still gonna do some listening in the language. I'm still gonna hopefully talk to somebody in the language, but I'm not gonna be actively learning more vocabulary. I'm not gonna be actively learning more grammar. I'm just gonna be maintaining the language. You all know what maintenance means. Okay. And then in June, in 6 months from now, I'm gonna start Quechua. And then again, so it's, as you can see, this is every 6 months I'm adding a new language. And at some point, like when I put it highlighted in yellow, that means I've reached the maintenance level. So that means this is what this number 4 here signifies. That means I'm only actively learning 4 languages, even though you see 5 below, right? Because, and like here in January 26th, I'm only going to be actively learning Turkish, Tamil, and Croatian because Quechua will be already in maintenance mode. Estonia will already be, or will already have been in maintenance mode, and Russian will have gone into maintenance mode, right? So I think even though it looks like, oh, at one point you're going to be learning 7 languages, or even if you count Spanish, 8 languages, if you count Latin, 9 languages, like no, right? At most 4, and they're not all going to be at the same level, right? For example, let's look at January. Here, 4. I'm going to be at a B2 level in Russian, which is, I think, a recommended level to be when you want to start a language. Some of these start languages I'm starting earlier than B2, but okay, but B2 level. So then I'll be B1 in Estonian, B1 in Quechua, and then I start Turkish. Okay, so anyway, so the 2 levels that I really care about are B2 level, which is most of the languages that I want to learn, and then the 2 for Russian C1 level and Turkish C1 level. So this is what I've taken from the CEFR webpage, which is like the European, I don't want to say European Union, but it's the European standard and for levels and what you have to be able to do to be at that level. They test for these levels. So at a B2 level, I highlighted what's important. You can interact with a degree of fluency and spontaneity that makes regular interaction with native speakers quite possible without strain for either party. That's fluency. That's fluency. And without stopping and searching for words, without translating in your head, right? But it's limited to certain fields, right? It's limited to certain fields. It's not like just speak on any topic, right? But that's a good level to be at. C1 can express himself fluently and spontaneously without much obvious searching for expressions. Although I search for expressions in English, but I want to say what I mean. So like I'm careful to search for expressions in English. But to do it in a foreign language, they don't mean exactly that. They mean like you don't know the word to say something basic, or you don't know the word to say something like not basic, but like just everyday stuff. Yeah, but it's so if you can reach that level and you can express yourself quite fluently on almost any topic and you can understand what's being spoken to you, that's a high level, right? C2 is, and this is by the way the level that I think they require. Like if you want to go to Russia and get a job in a Russian like company and you're speaking Russian on a daily basis in your work, this is the proficiency level. This is the working proficiency level. I think is C1. That's a high level. Like imagine you go to a foreign country and you function perfectly well in that country, in that language, at your job there. That's a high level. So to have that as my goal for C1 and for Turkish and Russian, like I think that's like almost like I want to say overkill, but yeah, it's a high standard that I want to get to. C2, I don't think I need. Like, you can understand everything with these. Basically, you're just speaking the language. Okay, you're limited in because you don't have as much like cultural what's it called knowledge, and you don't read as much as other people have in the language. So yeah, obviously there's going to be a difference between a C2 speaker and like even like a native speaker, let's say. So I don't need that. Like I wouldn't mind getting to a C2 level, obviously, because why not? But like it's not the goal. The goal is C1 for 2 languages and B2 for the other languages. And honestly, B2 seems a bit much for Quechua. And depending on like if I make friends or not online with Estonian speakers, it might be more than I need for Estonian. Maybe Tamil too. But I feel like I can make friends in Croatian friends, and I think like in Kazakh too. And I think Estonian too. Quechua is the only one that I think maybe I don't really need a B2 level, but okay, it's there for now. That's it. Those are my goals. Those are my language goals. That's it. So those are 2 recommendations, book recommendations. And I don't know what I was if I have anything to add, if I should make this a little bit longer. As far as language, I don't know if I have anything to teach anybody when it comes to how you should approach a language. I've tried several languages, some of them for several months, and then I've ultimately quit. I know that the biggest thing is you want to have vocabulary. You need to get vocabulary into your head where you can hear it and you know what it means, and where it's your active vocabulary where you can use it, not passive where you can only remember it when you hear it or read it, right? So you need to speak. Pronunciation is very important. Pronunciation. So shadowing, by the way, is a technique to learn pronunciation where you just mimicking other native speakers is very important. Listening is very important. Obviously, all the things are very important, but the point is that you want to hear the language, and you want to be able to differentiate. Like if you hear a sentence, you want to be able to differentiate all the words. You're like, oh, this was actually 2 words, not 1 word. Like, have you ever heard native speakers in English or any language speak like at a fast, what sounds to you like amazingly fast, like ridiculously fast? You're like, what? I can't hear that word. Like I've taught English speakers, like foreign people come there, like, how do you do? How are you? What are you doing? If you talk to them like that, they can understand. But if you say, hey, what are you doing? Like, they're like, what? They have that, huh? What are you doing? Huh? Eh, what, what'd you say? And they don't say, what'd you say? They say, what did you say? Like, what'd you say? Like, what'd you say? What'd you say? What'd you say? Like, imagine learning a language and learning English, and you're like 2 weeks in or a month in, and somebody says, what'd you say? Like, you have no idea what the F they said, right? And listening to the language a lot will allow you to understand the what did you say or the what you say separately, and then you can like, yeah, then you can interpret for yourself, or you can understand maybe better than saying interpret. Okay, so and speaking, making these sounds can only really happen if you hear the sounds, right? Like it's the old story, like not the old story, but like some Asian speakers, like Japanese speakers, Korean speakers, cannot hear the difference between the R and the L. So when they say a word, or when like I've known Japanese speakers after a year, 2 years of English, and they'll write a word, and instead of using the R to spell that word, they'll use an L to spell that word, because the whole time they thought it was an L. And then in their heads, they've been saying, and in their heads, they've been hearing L. And when they've been saying the word, they've been saying L. But we just thought they were bad at pronouncing R's. But they actually thought the word used an L, because that's when they heard it as an L. Right. So if you can't hear the difference, you're never going to make your it would be very surprising if you actually started saying it with the right way. If you started saying right, right, surprise, but in their minds, they're hearing supplies with an L, supplies, but it's actually an R, surprise. But they hear supplies, right? And if I do it subtle enough, like even Americans, supply, surprise. No, Americans will always hear it. But if your level is not like a high level in English, like supplies, L, surprise, R, supplies, L, supplies, L. You thought I was going to say R, but that's only because you thought I was going to go back to the pattern. Surprise, R, surprise, R, surprise, R, supplies, L, right? You want to be able to hear that, because then you could actually enunciate it yourself, pronounce it correctly yourself. Listen to a lot of the language. it seems like you're not making progress because you're just listening, and you're not really doing anything to show the progress other than like, wait, I think I'm catching on, but that takes a long time. It's a slow, it's a slow, it's hard to see the progress. It's like losing weight. It's hard to see the progress. And you're like, this is worthless. I'm not doing anything. I feel bad. I'm like, I'm not accomplishing my goals. But no, but you've been losing weight. You just can't see it in the mirror. Okay, maybe you weigh yourself, but then sometimes you're like, you drink too much water or you just have a bloaty day and you feel like, oh my God, I gained weight, but I've been exercising. Tangent. Okay. So listen to the language. Listen a lot, mimic a lot. Yeah. Oh, I also recommend, I don't know if I should say this. Yeah, I recommend you stay away from speaking the language early. Like and stay away from tutors early. You're paying tutors really for stuff you could get for free on YouTube. Honestly, do you really need to pay a tutor to correct how you say здравствуйте, здравствуй, привет, suka? Do you really need a tutor to teach you how to say that? Like, you're paying somebody to correct it. Just watch the YouTube video and copy them. Usually, they're doing better than the tutor because you can replay it, and they've spoken clearly because they know, like, yeah, because they're making videos exactly for you, right? So you're not really gaining much from tutors, language tutors, early, like at an A1 level, A2 level. You're not. Like, some people say they do because, oh, I tailor my lessons. I tell them exactly what I want to learn. They're like, yeah, but you can get that basically on YouTube. My recommendation is don't pay for tutors early in your language study. It could have negative consequences because you'll be like, oh, I didn't study so hard this week, and my tutor left me homework, and I'm going to show no progress, or I'm going to show that I've actually gone backwards. You're going to feel bad, and then you're going to fake your lesson. You're going to have notes, your cheat sheet notes, or you're going to like, yeah, like it happens. This is what we do, right? This is what we people do. So I would recommend you don't put yourself in these situations. And I'm talking to the average language learner where we feel lazy some days, where we just like nothing seems to stick, or we're like stuck at the phrase book level. We plateau, right? We all plateau in language, and you're like, and now you have a tutor, and then you're paying. You feel like I'm wasting money. This tutor thinks I'm lazy. This tutor, oh, not stupid. No, but like language learning doesn't require intelligence anyway. But so like, yeah, stay away. I would stay away from tutors, and even if you get a free, like if you find somebody language exchange for free, I would try to delay that until you get to like a close to a B1 level. You could speak more. You're less boring to talk to as a language exchange. Nobody wants to talk to you as a A1 level language exchange buddy. Uh, Здравствуйте. Uh, Хорошо. It's like, fuck, is that all you could say? Like, that's not a conversation, right? You're just asking them to correct your pronunciation. Like, and they're talking in English, right? Okay, it's broken English, it's bad English, but they're at a B1, B2 level. Oh, today, Carlos, I don't know what language I'm interpreting. I'm mimicking, but or I'm like trying to like copy. But yeah, so if you're at A1 level, A2 level, you're going to be a shitty language exchange partner, and you're wasting your money with tutors. Wait till you get to a B1 level at least. Okay. What other recommendations? I like textbooks. I like grammar. I don't recommend you do grammar your first A1. At the A1, A2 level, stay away from grammar, or not stay away completely, but do the bare minimum. Learn the personal pronouns, maybe learn the present tense for like one kind of verb or like another kind of verb. Like different languages have different kinds of verbs. But don't overdo it. Just learn the phrasebook stuff. You'll be amazed what you can say if you learn the phrasebook stuff. Imagine you can say in a language, hello, hi, bye, good morning, good evening, how are you? My name is this, I am this many years old. Are you single? Are you married? You look amazing. I want to marry you. Do you have children? I don't want to marry you. Right? If you can say all the phrasebook stuff, like, I feel like you're basically at a B1 level. And if you have good pronunciation in phrasebook stuff, like to me, like that's like already like I could be satisfied being, give me a phrase book and I memorize this phrase book. I memorize 80% of this phrase book, and like I can summon the phrases I need for the circumstances. Like, that's a high level. That's a high level. Okay, it's not C1 level, but it's still a high level. Like it's a very useful skill to have that. So, and you don't need teachers and tutors to do that. You don't need, just go on YouTube. And you don't need Pimsleur. You don't need Asimil. You don't need Rosetta Stone. You don't need Duolingo. You don't need Memorize. You don't need any of these apps, websites, programs to accomplish that. YouTube has more than enough for you for free. Okay. The only thing is, are you going to be consistent in your study? If you are consistent in your study, you are going to make progress. Some days or some weeks more than others, but you're not going to regress, right? Review is important. You're not going to regress, and you're not going to plateau so long. You're going to plateau eventually, but you won't be stuck there endlessly. And because you won't lose heart. You'll be like, no, I'm making progress. It's small, but you know that it's coming, right? That's what she said. That was crude. Okay, anyway, that's it. Okay, now I'm rambling like beyond. Like I'm gonna start talking about like philosophy. That's it. So that has been my language goal. This has been my language goals. These have been my language goals. Do I speak English? Mm, I've given you two excellent books, by the way, excellent, and I've given you some advice. It's common advice. I'm not a polyglot. Take the advice with a grain of salt, as they say, because I'm coming to you as someone who has tried and failed. It's not that I don't have knowledge about how to accomplish my goals. It's just that I haven't done it, right? So if it's coming from somebody who has done it, they have more credibility. I could be saying the exact same thing polyglots say because I watch a bunch of polyglots, so I'm actually giving you basically what they're saying. But coming from me, you can be more skeptical than it coming from somebody who's done it. That said, it's gonna be your learning method is gonna be unique to you. And I don't mean that in a cliched, everybody's different way. It's just some methods are going to work better for you than other methods. And you have to figure what those methods are. Right? If flashcards work for you, use flashcards. If you need like Anki or Duolingo, then use that. Or if you think reading is the best way to acquire vocabulary, then use that. Or speaking, use that. But one of those methods is going to be more effective for you, and that method might not be as effective for you, or it might not be the best method for your buddy might learn a different way. That's the point. So you have to figure out like, okay, I can, like, if I want to learn vocabulary, I can use flashcards, I can use apps, I can use books, I can use speaking partners. Like, figure out which one works better for you and use that. And it doesn't mean you have to be exclusive to that. Like, you can mix in like a spaced repetition system along with your flashcard method, which is basically the same thing. But you can use it as part of your reading, like reading in context, right? So you don't have to keep it. You don't have to use like, oh, this is the best method, I'm only going to use this method. No, you can throw in another method. Like a little variety will help you. Um, so you have to kind of design your own learning method, and taking this active role actually helps you in learning. So I recommend you be more active in designing your own curriculum. It's I that's not actually, I mean, that's not easy to do, and there's a certain like appeal to not doing it, which is why we buy textbooks. You're like, oh, let's get an expert. An expert will design the program, and I'll just do the exercises the expert has laid out for me to do. There's something very beneficial about that when you're getting guided by an expert and you're being spared a lot of the work. But designing your own curriculum means you have to do more effort and more work, and it's not actually in the language. It's just meta. It's meta stuff, right? You're okay. If you don't know what I mean by meta, then go to school. All right, all right. That's it. Enough rambling. I think I have enough to like entertain myself for a few hours here listening to myself. Leave your comments. If you speak Russian, leave a comment in Russian. I will use Google Text to translate, and then I will respond in Russian as if I knew Russian to impress you, especially if you are Buxami and blonde and female and female. Don't be writing me if you're a buxomy blonde dude. I'm not into that. I'm not into that. Can be nice, but I'm not into it. Hello, Thailand. Hello. Wow. Where, like, I feel like I'm forcing this now. Okay, bye. Later. See you guys. Oh, I did this for no reason because I didn't log off yet. Now. Again, now.